welcome to Pen Tool Photoshop. In this tutorial, we'll cover pathing solid shapes and checking for errors. So we'll be cutting this image out, and then we'll be checking the actual cutout. So by pressing P to select the pen tool over in the toolbar over here, and in the paths palette, I select the path that's already there. So it's deselected, so that's now selected. You can see it's highlighted. So hold down Command and click and drag over the path to select the path. Then I can zoom in and click on the path to activate the path. Now you can see the rubber band that's coming off the path. So I've got this existing path here, so just you can see the exact precision, how this path follows the line all the way along. So this is a really precise cutout, but we won't really ever need it that precise. This is a really fine sort of line art sort of image, but generally most images have got a bit of a feather, like this image here. But I'll go through the process of cutting this image out. So you can see I've come in on the line a little bit here because I don't want to be right on the edge. So I wouldn't want to put the point like right there. You can see this white area will come through, and when I place that image on a colored background, you'll see the green and you'll have a bit of a white halo around it. That's what that means. So I can actually nudge that point, use the arrow keys or the shift key to nudge by 10 pixels. I can nudge that in. You can see it's right on the line there. So that's extreme precision. I mean, it's probably a bit over the top, but what we were doing is cutting out this sort of distance in. So what I want to do is position this anchor over to the left here. See how it's right on the edge of the window? So that gives me a lot of free space along here to be able to drag and pull a point. It'll only go as far as this anchor. So now, according to the previous tutorial where I left a gap, so I can do here is I can put a point here, I'm leaving a gap, now I'm filling that gap in, and I'm dragging these control handles out. So you can see there's a gap here. The distance between this circle on the line and that circle on the line is pretty much the same. And I filled in this gap here. So I keep working my way around the image and keep moving forward. So I use the spacebar, click and drag. So always click and drag. Click and drag, so I filled in the gap. Now hold down the Alt key, change direction. So this is just one big continuous straight line, so I can just go from there to there. So I'm not worried about this distance here. I'm really zoomed in here. That's over the top precision. But in the later tutorials, I'll show you more practical application of cutting out. So if I just continue around this image, so you can see I've got a gap here. I put a point there, click and drag, fill it in. In this case here, I don't need to actually have a gap. I can just click and drag. So you can see I've got a little gap, fill it in, and the distance there is the same as the distance there. Small gap, fill it in. I'll start to speed it up a bit. Small gap, fill it in. Small gap, fill it in. So I always see I'm positioning this anchor to the left here. I don't want to go off to there because I can't see what I'm doing. I don't want to go here, because I haven't got enough room. So I just position that anchor to the left here. In this case, I don't have to have a gap at all. I can just really small. And these control handles, see I'm not dragging them out very far. Just keeping them really short. So when you're starting out, you might think, okay, well, what if I put a point here? You put a point there, it's too slow. You're going to take forever to cut out. But starting out, by all means do that, because you want to get used to how to drag out these control handles. Click and drag. All right, so if I'm on a long stretch like this, I can zoom back a little bit. I think, okay, I can put a point right here. I'm looking for where the arc curves. See, if I put a point here, it'd be too hard for me to fill in. I'm going to have to drag these control handles out way too long. See, I'm trying to stretch to fill it, and this gap here gets a bit awkward. That's why you're better off putting a lot of more points down and quicker. So don't try to put less points down. A lot of people say, oh, less points is better. It really is. It doesn't make any sense. You just put down the points where it's necessary. If you understand the formula about where to put these points down, that logic of putting less points doesn't make any sense. It doesn't mean anything. So you just put a point where it's comfortable for you, for your skill level, and whatever the arc dictates, that's where you put how many points down. You see, go to the gap, fill it in. Slight gap, fill it in. Slight gap, fill it in. So this one here, slightly off. Okay, a bit precise. I can just nudge it with the arrow keys. So let's say, for example, I put this one here, and I put another one. I think, okay, right, well, I want to go back and fix this one. I'm still activated the path. I can hold down the Command key, click on that point, and move it. And I'm still activated. Like that. So let's say I put a point in here. It's too far up. I can use the arrow keys. Nudge it down a little bit. Sometimes if you are really sort of struggling, say, I say don't go back and fix things. Let's say you put this and you couldn't really work it out and you're starting out and you're just in a hurry. By all means, click a point, hold down the Command key, drag it in place. Click another point, drag it in place. It's just, you can see it's a lot slower because I had to go back and add these two anchors. If you're doing that a lot, you've got to put these anchors closer together, slow down the process, and get comfortable with dragging out these anchors. You don't want to have to be going back like this. Like it's really slow. I mean, this is coming from somebody that spent days and days cutting out as a junior for catalogs. You really have to just be quick and fluent like this. It doesn't take that much. It really, I talk about doing days and days of cutting out, but honestly, after maybe 30 cutouts, possibly a few hours, I was as good as I am today. So by all means, it's not something you really have to do for years and years. It's something you can pick up in a matter of hours. It's just be patient and just work out how to control your mouse. So yeah, also on that, I'm actually using a mouse to do this. So a lot of people say, about a Wacom tablet. Personally, I'm left-handed, so I find a mouse a little bit easier. I definitely use a Wacom tablet for a lot of things like hair, drawing in hair, other more advanced Photoshop techniques, retouching models. But I find with the pen tool, it's a lot more precision. It's a lot quicker to use the shortcuts. And you know, I do use the mouse for a lot of things in retouching. So I don't feel like you need a Wacom tablet to do this, but I definitely do recommend a Wacom tablet at some point. But starting out, your mouse is perfectly adequate. You can see I'm placing points, clicking and dragging. So this would be extreme sort of cutout. This is perfect for things like if you want to create a shape to put into Illustrator or into InDesign. So, you know, people can say, oh, why don't you just bond this? I mean, that's not the exercise, but you would use this path for a lot of other things, not just for the purpose of cutting it out. So you can see all these points, so that's perfectly cut out. So that's fine. So we've got the path, and we can make it into a clipping path if we wanted to. So according to the previous tutorials, hit OK. So now you can see it's slightly bolded, it's a clipping path. So that would be cut out when we place it into another program, which I'll cover in a later tutorial. So I'll turn that off. So also about the flatness, if you visit pentoolphotoshop.com, it talks all about the flatness. So this setting here would leave completely blank. But if you're interested in more details about the flatness, just visit pentoolphotoshop.com, and there's more details about that. So I've covered the first part, how to cut out an image. So we also want to cut out an element inside the image. So what the second point is talking about, so if I make another path, click off that. So this image here is really clearly defined. If you had a really well-focused image and cutting it out, it's really easy to cut out. Sometimes when you've got this soft edge here, it can be more difficult. So in this case here, this is an example of where I want to change the color. So this is where the cutout has to be right on this feather. So if I just cut out, so I've got a working path. That's that in place. So with a working path, you've got to be careful to make sure you save it straight away. So I don't leave it to the end. I normally double-click on it straight away, save it as a path, and then you have to click back on that anchor just to activate it again. As you can see, when I clicked it as a path, it wasn't activated. So I got to control click and drag over the anchor or over the line, click on the anchor, and now it's activated again. So leave a gap, fill it in. Leave a gap, fill it in. So the precision, how much precision you want, will be dictated by essentially by your client. Like what is the end result of the job? If this was tiny on the page, then you know I could probably cut it out from back here. But you know, if the job dictates that you need absolute precision, that this has to change color and it's maybe going on the front cover of a magazine, this is where I'd be zooming into. Right here, hold down the command, you can nudge that one forward. Change direction, use the Alt key, Option. Leave the gap, fill it in. Don't worry about anything to do with number of points or anything. Literally look at that gap, fill it in. That is the key to cutting out quickly. And see, I've maintained that exact distance. So see, I'm right in the middle there. I wouldn't want to all of a sudden go, oh, you know what, I might just cut in, because I can't. Once I make this path a selection for the purpose of changing the color, I want to have a consistent distance, a consistent line in this feather. I can always shift the line later on. I click on the point to close it off. So I've got two paths now. So the third point here is where I'm talking about checking the path for errors. So it's all well and good. So we've got the cutouts. So if you wanted a clipping path, that's fine. You just make a clipping path and the job is done. But even before you do that, you still want to actually check this path. Like how does it look? So the way you do that in the paths palette, click on the path here. So in the flyout menu, I need to choose Make Selection. So the default is 0. So I always change that to 0.5 just to give it a slight feather, and anti-aliased is on. So when I hit OK, it converts this path into a selection. And so everything to do with the selections are under the select menu. So these tutorials are only about the pen tool, but I need to show you these areas because you're checking the pen tool that you've cut out. But this everything to do with selection, I might cover in some later tutorials, but I won't go into depth with it here. So the main thing to know is selection. You can go here and deselect if you want. There's different options. So Command D, we'll deselect that. So the reason I mentioned that, I've got the settings here, 0.5, make selection. So you only need to go into this menu once, because once you've set it up, it'll always stay 0.5. So I never enter a feather here. If I do make a selection, I normally go make selection, 0.5. If I want to feather it later, I normally go into feather, modify, and then feather here using a shortcut. I always leave that as 0.5. Command D to deselect. So the quicker way of making a selection, instead of going to the menu every time, I can click on the path and hold down Command. So see when I put the hand over the path icon, when I hold down Command, it gives me a little marquee square. So now when I click on the path, it makes a selection. So with that selection, I want to see how it actually looks. So I've got the next option here, says Quickmask mode. So what we want to do is press Q, and this will bring up a Quickmask. So you can see on the bottom left-hand corner of the toolbar palette, second from the bottom, this little circle inside the square, that's the Quickmask. So if you look on the right-hand side in the channels palette, what it's done is converted a selection, which is these running ants, into something called a Quickmask, which is a black and white channel. So you've got the RGB channels, and then you have the Quickmask channel. So if I press Q again, that will release it. So at the moment, I've got a tinted sort of red color. So the default in Photoshop is red. What I want to do is make that solid, because I want to see how it actually looks on a colored background, a solid colored background, not a tinted background. So to edit the options of the Quickmask, I double click on that icon, the Quickmask icon, and where it says masked areas, I leave that. I change the opacity to 100%. So you can also change the color. I personally leave the defaults as close as possible. It just helps when, in the industry, when you freelance a lot and you go onto different computers, it's just worth leaving the defaults as close as possible. It just saves you having to set up your unique setup on every single computer you work on. So I like to just leave it as red. If you're doing maybe 50 images and they're all on a blue background, you might change this to blue. It makes it a bit easier. So hit OK, press Q. So now when I press Q, you can see it completely cut out. So I can see exactly how that cutout looks on a red background. So with channels and layer masks, whatever is black represents transparency. Whatever is white is what you can see in the image. So if you visualize it in the sense of how kids create a scratch art, what they do is they paint something on a bit of paper, and then they paint over it with black, and then they scratch it away to reveal the image. Or if you had a window and you painted the window black, and then you scratched away the black, you could see the outside come through, the image come through. So it's really important with masks to visualize black is transparency, white reveals the image. So I can see the cutout, and I can see how precise it is. So at the moment, I can only see the image. I can't see the reverse, what I've actually cut off. So I can also invert this Quickmask. So the option for that is Command I, where you can find it in Image Adjustments and Invert. So you're essentially inverting pixels. So I click on that now, so I can see the reverse now. So you can see what I've cut off. So what I normally do is Control I back and forward, and I have a look around the image. And that's how I check how precise my cutout is. Press Q, Command D. So if I wanted to edit this image, I would have to go back to the path, get rid of the Quickmask, press P, select part of this, and so I'll just mess this up so you can see it. Command click again on the path, press Q. So you can see the cutout looks perfectly fine here. I'm going to press Command I, so you can see, oh right, okay, I didn't cut that out very well. So this purple image here, part of the image here, Command click, Q. You can see it's quite a good cutout. It's right on the line. So I'll just show you what I mean by changing the color of this. So I've done a cutout of that, make it a selection. So in the layers, I won't get into detail with this, it's about outside of this tutorial, but if I go hue saturation, this is how I use this path. So I've done a really precise cutout. As soon as I select this hue saturation adjustment layer, it automatically converts whatever was a selection into a layer mask. So you can see here white is the little cutout. So if I adjust the hue, you can see it's adjusting the color within the cutout. So the next step from here would be to fix up this edge. You can see the colors is not quite right, it hasn't lined up. That's a more complex process outside this tutorial, but it's because it has a feather. But the actual shape, the starting point is the same. Fixing this up would be a whole other process. So the last thing to cover would be if this was an actual cutout. So at the moment, this shape here is just one solid shape. So let's say you wanted that to actually be cut out, so transparent in there as well. So this path that I cut out earlier, I can Command, click and drag over the whole path. So we covered this in an earlier tutorial. Cut the path, which I pressed Command X, and then click on path 1, Command V, paste it straight in. So that path 2 is nothing on there anymore. So this path here, I can Command click on this path, press Q, and you can see now the inside's cut out. Because up here, it's selected Exclude Overlapping Shapes, that automatically cuts out these inside paths. So you can see there's a path inside here. If I was to put another path, Q, deselect, if I put another path in here, that's cut out as well. So that was pathing with solid shapes and checking for errors. I'll see you in the next tutorial.